Let's go.
This is the Spike Rebel music experience.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together.
This is the Spike Rebel music experience. Hey world, this is the Spike Rebel experience. And my show, if you don't know, I'm Spike Rebel, and basically I paint, I produce and sing and all that stuff that's creative. I love it. And I love meeting other artists in Chicago and around the world that do positive things, that whatever their talent is that God gave them, some of them are very interesting and talented, seasoned artists, but they're not mainstream. Or you just don't know who they are. So today's guest, I have a famous guy that at least that I think is famous and that you should know. Chuck-a-Luck. Chuck-a-Luck. You in this house?
What's going on,
Hey,
Spike? How
what's
you
up,
doing
man?
there, bro? All right, right
Come
on.
on, sit down and talk
What's
to me.
going on, TV world? The Stage 2 show, huh?
Yeah, we had Stage the show.
Spike,
They
how you
house-
doing there, brother Spike?
Man, it's been a minute.
Man, thanks for having me, man. Seriously, it's
So look,
nice to be here.
real quick, where you from?
Well,
Where your
for
beginnings?
those, there's a lot of people that knows where I'm from, but there's a lot of people that don't. So actually, I'm from Chicago, right? Just for those who don't know. And I grew up on the west side of Chicago, and west side, as we
South
always
side.
say, right?
Yeah.
A lot of great people from the west side, and so I grew up in the housing projects called the Rockwell Gardens, for those who know what that is,
Huh.
and which don't exist anymore
Yes.
there, right?
Gentrified,
In the
yeah.
early '60s, right? There when I was a little kid, and so I went to Crane High School, and then I ended up over at Malcolm X College playing with the college band on bass with the bass. And so my life started very early from my father, who did orthopedic shoes. My mother was deaf, of course, and I had 7 brothers and 1 sister.
7 brothers and one sister.
Yeah. So life for me in those days was quite interesting. There were quite a different characters around at that time, and some great people. And during those days in the 1969, there was the Panthers and the riots all that time, and so all that was going on during the civil rights movement propelled me to pick up an instrument, which I actually started by my father. And all my fathers and his brothers, 13 uncles and 1 auntie, they all were pastors and played instruments and things
Okay.
like that.
So the
So it
church
was
thing.
already destined
Okay.
for me to play an instrument because of their DNA, I would say.
Okay.
And so I felt that the Creator ordained me to eventually play this instrument, which I actually started on guitar, and then later on, the bass came because my little friends at the time, we were teenagers, and they moved from out of the projects, and so I would have to play his parts. I was a rhythm guitar player. Back then, we used to have
So you
lead
play
guitar
guitar
players
too,
and
huh?
rhythm guitar players, right? And so, and now we don't even call it no more. It's like we don't see like really rhythm guitar players like
You
we
just say
should.
guitar.
Right, it's people just say I just play guitar, and so when he moved, he couldn't make it over as much as he used to when he moved. And so I said I would take over his part on
the guitar.
on bass. And so what I would do, I would take my lead guitar, which had 6 strings, and I would take that off and play bass that way. Right, it was
Wow.
really crazy. And then that's how I ended up actually playing bass, because otherwise I probably would end up being a guitar player, which my father was. So that's how I got into playing bass, basically.
Now where did your name Chuck-a-Luck come from then?
Chuck-a-Luck came from a friend of mine's, an older gentleman, because back in those days we had always mentors and older people talking to young people, and so I would go over his house and practice. I was playing like little, clubs. I was only like 13. I was already playing clubs at 13, 14 years old. I was playing like a grown-up already then at 14, right? But anyway, so I would go over his house on an ongoing basis in basements, and then he saw me chucking around and playing licks,
it.
and
That's
I'm
what Chuck-
playing stuff, and he's like, man, you sure chucking on that bass, man. You Chuck-a-Luck, right? And so I went like, Chuck-a-Luck. So I sat there and marinated on that for a while, and all of a sudden I said, you know what?
That's gonna be it.
I think that's going to be my name for the rest of my life. And then here we are now, too many years later,
I
right?
hear your name in the streets a lot, not in a bad way. Just it seems like everybody has tapped somewhere, playing with you somewhere. So But you sing too.
A little bit.
Yeah, I've seen you sing before.
Yeah.
And you play the guitar, like you just said.
Yeah.
And you play the bass.
Yeah, and I produce, and I do a lot of things, with instruments.
So you've been on tour, or have you been a band director for some major artists?
Okay, well, I'm going to go back in the retro. When I grew up, around about 15, 16, I was in high school, and we had, back then there was a huge band era back then. We don't have that kind of
Is that
band
like the
era.
Bar-Kays and-
You had the Bar-Kays, you had the Commodores, and you had
Confunction.
Confunction. I mean, you name
those,
it.
yeah.
Kool and the Gang. You had all the great, the Maze, Earth, Wind, and Fire, of course. And so at that time, for a little kid, I'm thinking, man, I want to be like one of these guys, and I hope. And so at that time, I had a band called Whacker Drive. That was like
Whacker or
well,
Whacker?
actually, a band was called the Wild Bunch Band in the beginning,
Okay,
right?
okay.
It's 1973. My first band. You had the Isley Brothers were out. Marvin Gaye, all the Motown music, Stax Records. We can go on and on and on. And so I was inspired to be in the band. So once I was able to get in the band, from there I had some horn players that were on tour. And I used to have to wait for them to come off tour, and guess who they were playing with? They were playing with the Emotions at that time. And so I went to go see them, and the Commodores and the Emotions was on tour at that time. And so I got a call one day and said they wanted a bass player, that they needed a bass player, because the bass player that they had, well, I don't want to say what happened, but it wasn't good.
Okay.
But that allowed me an opportunity to walk in that door. So I had to audition among other bass players by a guy named Keith Henderson, which was the
Keith.
Keith Henderson. And for those who a
Another
great guitar
Chicago,
player,
yeah.
right? And so they came off tour for about a week, and he flew back to Chicago to audition me for the Emotions tour, and that's when my life career took off. Was the beginning and the pinnacle part of my career as a premier bass player. That was the beginning of that, right?
For the Emotions.
For the Emotions, and so once I went on the road, with the Emotions, went on tour. I went through the auditions. I would never forget that Keith Henderson's mother, she would always say, like, "Who's that stomping my floor like that?" And I'm this little young kid stomping the heck out of her floor for 2 days straight, right? And so I got the audition because, and the reason that I was so happy to get this job, because this was going to lead me to my mentor, which was Verdine White. See, every bass player and every musician always have a mentor, right?
Okay.
And so Verdine White, Earth, Wind, and Fire was my mentor. That's who
That's the one with the hair who's jumping
yeah,
around.
and jumping around and all that. So I was a jumping around type of kid growing up, around the hood and everything like that. And so once I got with the Emotions, I know that Maurice White of Earth, Wind, and Fire, the leader and founder of Earth, Wind, and Fire, was producing them. He was producing the Emotions and Denise Williams and many other groups. And so I was like, man, this might be my chance to go meet Verdine, right? And Maurice White and those things, right? Lord behold, I was on tour with the Commodores, and so when I flew out to San Francisco, that was my first job after the audition. And then before you know it, I was just on tour with them, right? They loved the way I played, and I used to be what I would call their pit bull when it comes to the concert stuff, right? In front of 30,000 people, and we played everywhere from the Madison Square Garden to all the major stadiums around the country, here internationally and everywhere. And so we was on the last leg of our tour, and I was in Los Angeles, a theater called the Greek Theater. And for those who know, especially in Hollywood, is where all the stars come out. Everybody comes out to the Greek Theater in Los Angeles. Okay. And so we were on our last leg of the tour with the Commodores. That's when Lionel Richie was with the Commodores before Lionel Richie became Lionel Richie, the single artist, right? And so there, people like Quincy Jones, Michael Jackson, Madonna. I mean, everybody was at our show, because at that time, Brick House was out with Lionel now, right? And Best of My Love and stuff like that. So anyway, Maurice happened to see me at the show, right? So everybody's hanging out after the show, and then I got a call. So anyway, we did the performance. It was a great performance. It was the last leg of our tour with the Commodores and Emotions. And then about a week later, I flew back home from the Greek Theater, and I got a call from Wanda. Wanda's the leader, is the girl that sings Best of My Love.
Okay.
And she said, Maurice White wants you to come out to Los Angeles and do the next Emotions record. And I was like, you kidding me? It's like, yeah. So I got called. Keith Henderson was on there, and a brother named Donzel Davis.
Okay.
Because we were like the icon rhythm sections for Chicago. We were the first of our generation that actually
Got out,
were doing
man.
world tours and major television shows. Like, I don't want to go back, but it's like Don Kirshner Rock Concert, Midnight Special. And, you know, and given I was only 16 when I was on the road, just made 17.
And the rest of your family was still in Chicago?
Everybody was still here, and so I became an instant star just because of that. It's like
Wow.
really funny, man. It's like it's funny how the world changes.
So after the tour stuff,
So I went in the studio. Maurice called me, so I flew first class, had some great food on the plane, and I was just ecstatic, really, you know, because I thought, now this is my chance to meet Verdine. Well, Lord behold, I got a call, and it was Verdine White. Wanda gave Verdine my number, and he called me and came pick me up and took me to the studio.
wow.
And you know, and he
So was he passing the torch, sort of speaking? Or
I don't
just-
know. I think he was just, well, those brothers are from Chicago. They from Chi-Town
So it's
too,
just-
right? So it was just that I was a young kid, so they were looking like this young kid really playing like he's playing, you know.
Yeah.
And I think it was just a nice gesture that he wanted to do. Little did he know that I wanted to meet him all this time, and then and to this day we're pretty good friends. And so they took me to the studio, and then before you know it, I
recorded.
did the album, and with great session players like Marlo Henderson, David Foster was on the record. You heard of David Foster?
know David Foster.
David Foster. Everyone should know David Foster.
Who's
I mean,
David
he's like
Foster?
David Foster is a composer and a writer.
Okay.
You'll see him. You see him on so many records, man. As
But
a
you
matter of fact,
combined with him. That
yeah,
helped
but
you
look,
finish
when you
these
get a chance,
albums.
Google. Now we got Google these days. You can
Yes.
Google that. But that's someone you should know.
David Foster.
He's like a Quincy Jones.
Okay.
Put it that way. He's a huge composer and writer, and he wrote that song. I think one of the songs he wrote was "After the Love Is Gone" for Earth, Wind and Fire.
Okay.
But anyway, so I played with a lot of masters, and then after that, after I did my first album with the Emotions, I came back home. There's a recording studio called Paul Serrano's, which what I would call the Black Studio, because that's where all the Afro-American artists we record at. People like
Where was
Natalie
that at?
Cole. That was on 22nd Street, where Record Road area is in Chicago.
Okay.
It's called Paul Serrano Studios, and we had artists like People Bryson that recorded out of there. Ramsey Lewis, Shaka Khan. I mean, we can go up Minnie Riperton. All of our great Afro-American artists recorded there, and so I became, of my generation, the top bass player, session guy.
okay.
At I was about that time I was about just almost making 18, and so immediately after I did my recording and the word got out on the street, I became, and I couldn't read music that well back then,
But
and
you
I was
just
like,
had to
yes,
feel.
but my talent was so good
Okay.
that it didn't matter to them. So my key of getting through all the music was the producers and people like Tom 84 Washington. Tom Washington is another composer, Charles Stephanie, and people like this. There's a lot of history. There's not a lot of time to talk about these guys because you're here to interview me, but these were my mentors. These are the guys that I grew up that were great composers and writers and producers, right? And Gene Barge, people like Gene Barge, and Paul Serrano was like the Afro-American studio. So much history. Natalie Cole, Marvin Yancey. You might have heard of these names
What about
before.
Curtis Mayfield? Was he
Curtis
part of that?
Mayfield. Well, Curtis Mayfield had Curtime Records.
Curtime Records, right.
So he wasn't necessarily really at Paul Serrano much because he had his
Right.
own studio.
Yes.
And Aretha Franklin was coming through, and of course all that music from the Curtis.
So all of this led to you traveling the world?
Yeah. So what happened? I was a studio musician and traveling. Then when the Emotions wasn't on the road,
You was playing
because I was
somewhere else.
mainly with them, starting out, and then I started playing. When I became a session musician, I started playing on people's records like the Shy-Lights, the Dells, Walter Jackson. Who else am I friend? There's so many, and then there was obscure sessions too. Like I would play on all kinds of sessions for all kinds of artists I didn't even know either, And then I end up playing a lot of blues sessions with a lot of our great legendary blues artists like Buddy Guy, Junior Wells, Pinetop Perkins, James Cotton.
That's a lot. That's a list. Nice discography.
B.B. King.
B.B. King.
Oh man, there's so many. Billy Branch, Sugar Blue.
So where's your album?
You know what? That's an interesting question. So many people ask me about this, right? I've written over probably about 400 songs that I actually have, right? In my catalog of songs, and never not even released not even one until
so
now.
that's in the making. The big Chuck-a-Luck Publishing,
yeah.
movies, films, magazines.
All of that. What's happening now? What I'm in the midst of doing now is working on releasing the first African American bass player magazine.
What is that called?
It's called Bass Tribes.
Bass Tribes.
Bass Tribe online magazine, and I'm trying to document and publish bass players that don't always get published in the other bass player magazines, because they miss a lot of us, right? And so I thought it was very important, no matter how famous or not, that any contribution, whether you're playing at a club or the little smaller, so that it doesn't matter, that your contributions mean something. And so I was inspired to do that because there are a lot of great bass players that didn't get really talked about in the other magazines out there. So I thought, you know what, I think why don't I go ahead and publish the first African American bass player, which there's not one black magazine that exists right now.
That reminds me of sort of like the program, The Soul Salon, where there's unknown chefs,
yeah.
painters, sculptors, etc. But is there a reason why? Do you think just like yourself? I'm pretty sure you probably would be concerned with who plays the music at the Grammys as they're walking up to get the awards. Who's the band guy playing in the back? We never know who they are.
That's exactly right. Same thing on record as well as on the ground. You got it on the ground,
like
on
the Motown
records,
guys,
right?
the
And
Funks,
Motown
yeah.
and the Funk Brothers and things like that. And we need more documentaries that need to document great contributions by African American musicians, which in America we don't really highlight that great, really, you know, and that has done like major contribution when you think about Larry Graham and that revolutionized thump bass, okay?
Right. No books on it or something.
Yeah, you know, we know Quincy.
Bring them out a little bit. But
Yeah, you know, and we don't have enough in our industry that support that, you know. And if you look around, everybody might know who the lead singers are, whether it's Aretha Franklin to Luther Vandross to whoever, but no one ever actually really knows who the musicians are, and which is, you know, what would it be like, music be like without having a musician to play?
And that brings me to my next question, like why in your opinion aren't there more like Charlie Mingus albums or Charles Mingus? I'm just saying, you see sax players, you might see Wynton or Bradford Marsalis, but you don't see drummer albums too much. I mean, Chris Daddy Dave, Robert Glasper, piano players, but you don't see bass albums. A drum, is that because everything's going digital or just?
Well, the digital revolution has definitely changed the dynamics of what we hear. Actually, we're hearing more people have, we're hearing more bass albums and different of all kinds of music, genres of music because of the digital revolution. Because back then, you know how much it costs for analog, you know, to actually do a whole album analog-wise?
Tape, yeah.
I mean, it's like, you know, 2-inch tape, $100 and $200 and something, $25 a tape, and then you got to still hire musicians and producers and studio time. So
digital is good now.
So digital, there's good and bad aspects about. There's a pros and cons, put it that way, with the digital revolution. What we have to understand about digital is that with all the sampling that took place from real instruments, there's been some spiritual damage because of that, because digital is cold. Analog
is warm.
Yeah, and analog is really warm, so you can feel the spirit in the air, just like when you play a bass and you play it out of a natural speaker. It's the physics is what you're feeling, and that helps feel the vibrations that way. Digital doesn't have any vibrations at all.
Wow.
So that's so if you look at when you hear digital music now, you notice you're not really listening to music. It don't make you feel good like it used to. We don't have a lot of good feel good music right now, you know, and a lot of it is due to a lot of the sampling. There's some good things about samples too, and the sampling has gotten better.
Right.
Where they try to, you know, but nothing beats a real musician.
So you're still alive, which is good. So I'm assuming that you're still putting bands together or going to be doing some shows throughout the summer in Chicago. Because real music's got to live somewhere.
Well, I think real music is really coming back, and people are starting to see the spiritual benefits of live music.
Now, you know what's interesting? I've been meeting a lot of producers that sell tracks, and they always call me to add some live something, guitar, bass, or keyboards on it, because they don't play.
Yeah, I know.
But they're techie their instrument
tech
is the
savvy.
digital
Right. Their instrument now
software.
is digital software and
Logic,
stuff like
Pro
that.
Tools,
Right.
Reasons, Cubase.
And I remember the digital revolution happened during my generation, so it was the beginning and end for employment for musicians back in the day. So a lot of those guys had that couldn't keep up with the technology, or didn't want to deal with the technology, or wasn't savvy enough to, or wanted to deal with it. Just they just went out of the
It's
business.
interesting, like your shows. I don't see the guys that I see producing at home making these beats for like Usher and that kind of sound. They're not coming to our shows. But then again, I don't see musicians like yourself at their houses. So I don't know. There's a middle something that's
the
probably
disconnect happened because, it's a longer story, and it wouldn't be enough time on your show to talk about that. But when it happened to my generation, what happened is that they kind of scattered. So when digital came, that became a new thing for young people.
Okay.
And I remember young people were walking around going, "I'm a producer," you know.
Right,
And to me, the way I see a producer is not a guy who can just push buttons, but a guy who can play an instrument, or he can do some composing or write some charts out, or. And so at times I felt like I was kind of appalled at it sometimes when these young people, it's like, you haven't been on the planet that long.
And another thing, and the fact that you just said in this interview here that you've met so many people as a producer and a performer. You meet managers and studio guys, whereas I think if you're just at the computer, you're not really socializing with too much. You just create and then say, "What do y'all think?" And I'm a producer. I'm better than somebody else.
Yeah, and then what happened when I would walk in the studio, given that I had a lot of studio experience by this time, and so when I would see a lot of the when the hip hop came in, because it started with Grandmaster Flash,
Okay.
right? And when hip hop was like conscious music, and then became unconscious, and then the Russell Simmons phase came in. And then what I would call it gotten ghetto fabulous after
Okay,
that.
yeah.
Okay, now people might not like
It's
what I'm
still
saying
there.
that
It's
about
still-
that.
that's where it's at now.
But yeah, you know, and so the music got bastardized in my view. That's my own opinion,
Yes.
but if you look at the facts of history and what's been going on, and we know that hip hop is really a fashion. It's and maybe it could be a fad to some, but then when they start, you know, the profanity that started happening and the violence that came with it and the degradation of young women, that took music into a whole new level of I don't know what I would call it, but it was such a degradation that music wasn't like that was so beautiful that anybody can hear it, young or old.
Right.
And then with young kids, you know, that are impressionable was hearing all this stuff. Then all of a sudden, gangster rap was all of a sudden it was cool to not talk about love anymore, you know, and things like that. So.
So look, what do you got going on now? Just let's the positive stuff that Chuck-a-Luck got going on in Chicago and beyond.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's a lot obviously going on. What I've been doing as of late, I've been putting together bands for different artists, national artists like which is Howard Huey, and
that's from Shalimar. That's from Shalimar.
Yeah, people like Roy Ayers and many others. I put bands together. So that's one thing for different venues. The other thing is like I'm getting ready to launch the Bass Tribe magazine. That's another thing. And then I have my foundation that's called Down with Guns, Up with Instruments, which is a gun exchange program with the police department around the country. But I'm gonna launch it here in Chicago, where you exchange guns for instruments and workshop programs, and then there's also an employment arm for our young people because there's too much violence going on. But that's another story as well because it's all systemic by our institutions that are part of the degradation in the black community. Okay. But the other thing that I'm doing is now trying to put a band together where I want to put a tour together of different artists, people, where we want to send a message out there that we definitely we definitely need reforms, whether it's law enforcement reforms and other reforms of our institutions so that we can create a path for our young people in America because we need a new path now to get people's minds out so they can create again. Because right now, and particularly in the black community, we're stagnated right now.
Okay.
And so music is one way to glue everything back together and unify us again through the art form and give kids some education on their history, through the music. Since most kids like music, and that's a universal thing, and everybody likes music, and so we're going to use music in doing fundraisers and concerts to get more instruments in kids' hands, to educate our young people. So that's what I'm currently working on right now.
Well, that's a lot. That's a lot, Chuck.
Yeah.
So, look, thanks for coming, but I want to hear you play. Maybe we can jam doing something together, but, you know, thanks for coming on the show.
All right. Well, hey,
You know?
man, well, thanks for having me,
Man.
and much success, man, with your show, man, because
gotta
this is
keep
your
bringing
first
it on.
kickoff, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
history, it'd be 10 years from now before you know it, right? You look back and go, wow, that was me and Chuck Luck. That was Chuck Luck back
Hey,
10
man, what
years
happened
ago.
to you?
You know.
You ever had a beard? You ever had?
No, well, I used to. I used to, but I'm trying to
Got
still
the
stay
clean,
young,
yeah.
man. Yeah, I'm just trying to,
What's up with
yeah.
the fashion? These are your hats. You got your own clothing design thing?
Well, I'm working on a few clothing designers right now for my band. Got a lot of interesting things coming up with the Bass Tribe Band. It's called the Chuck Luck and the Bass Tribe Band. So got a lot of interesting bass players and a lot of things coming, man. So look for it, man.
I look forward to it.
I'm coming at you,
And,
man.
and I heard
really
you got a lot
great.
of girls. I don't know if they're fashion models or just bass players, but
They all kinds of stuff. Yeah, they're everything.
yeah. All right.
They do everything.
There you have it. Chuck Luck.
All right, well, thanks, Spike. Hey, man, again, man, congratulations on your new show, man, and wish you much success and blessings to you.
All right.
All right.
Hey, man, let's go do something.
Okay.
You
All
gonna
right.
jam?
Hey, man, I want you to probably play with me at the Chicago Music Awards coming up 2015,
No question.
March 15th, man. So
When?
you're a good
When?
musician. March 15th.
2015. Where?
That's it's a theater. I can't. It's at a theater. I can't think. The name is so hard. I think it's in Polish. I can't remember. But
I'll be there.
But I would love that. But you want to play something, man? You want
Yeah.
to play something with me?
Yeah,
do
come
a little
on.
jamming. All right, let's do that. All right.
All right. Welcome back, everyone, back to Stage the Show TV and the Spike Rebel Experience. Tonight's special guests, Chuck Luck and the Bass Tribe Girls. Here we go.
We're asking our Creator for clarity. We need clarity to find peace in our world. Our children need clarity. We must lead by example on our planet. As our Creator watch what we do and what we say, it's very important for our children to know that peace is the only way for us to live on this planet. Violence has no place on Earth or any other universe for that matter. So we continue to ask for that clarity in our lives because man must find peace. Peace has always been the answer. Violence would never be the answer for our universe. So we ask for clarity.
As we go through this life filled with pain, there may be many battles just to stay alive. Look what's going on in this world today. Do we like what we see? Do we have what they need? Clarity, can you tell me what I need? Clarity, can you tell me what the children need? Clarity, can you see what we need? Clarity, can you tell me what the children need?
Tell me, tell me, tell me, tell me.
Tell me, 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 tell me. As we go through this life filled with pain, there may be many battles just to stay alive. Look what's going on in this world today. Do we like what we see? Do we have what they need? Clarity, can you tell me what I need? Clarity, can you tell me what the children need? Clarity, can you see what we need? Clarity, can you tell me what the children need? Tell me, tell me, tell me. Tell me, 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 tell me.
We continue to ask for God for peace.
Clarity, can you see what I need? Clarity, can you tell me what our children need?
What our children need.
Can you see what we need?
What do they see?
Clarity, can you tell me what our children need?
Tell me, tell me, tell me,
Yeah.
tell me,
Tell me, tell me, please tell me, tell me, tell me, tell me, tell me, tell me.
Clarity, can you see what I need?
Yeah.
Clarity, can you tell me what's in front of me? Clarity, can you see what I need? Can you tell me what the children need?
Tell me, 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 tell me.
Tell me,
Tell me, tell me, tell me, tell me, tell me, tell me,
we need clarity.
tell me, 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 tell me.
All right, and that was Bass Tribe, Girls and Chocolate. All right.
Okay, we'll keep it rolling. Don't stop. You know, I saw your finger on the button. You know, it looked like you was gonna stop.
And because of that, we know that the world continues to find love. We must continue to find love in our world because love is what makes everything as beautiful as it is. The world needs love. No matter where you come from in the world, we know that love brings everybody together. Do you agree? Do you agree?
I do.
Do you agree? The world needs love, y'all. Oh yeah.
needs love. L-O-V-E,
The world needs love, y'all.
L-O-V-E, 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 needs love. L-O-V-E, 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 needs love. L-O-V-E, 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 needs love. Ooh, the world needs love. The world needs love. The world needs love. Needs love. The world needs love. The world needs love. The world needs love. Needs love. The world needs love. The world needs love. The world needs love. Needs love. Needs love. Yeah, we need love, love. The world needs love. Needs love. The world needs love. The world needs love. The world needs love. Needs love. The world needs love. The world needs love. The world needs love. Needs love. The world needs love. Yeah, the world needs love. Oh, love.
All right, that was the Spike Rebel Experience with Chuck-a-Luck and the Bass Tribe Women.
So I'd like to thank you all for checking out the Spike Rebel Experience, and our guest today was Chuck-a-Luck. Thanks, man, for coming, sharing that love.
The pleasure's mine.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Who's your band?
Well,
with
these young people, we just started working together, and so so that's who the band is. So they can kindly tell you their names, and
Elishma.
AJ, a.k.a. Black with Soul.
Devania.
Devania. All right. And again, thank you all But this is beautiful to see some ladies on the bass also.
Oh yeah, well thanks for sitting in with us, man, and jamming on your Spike show, your first kickoff, man.
This
That's
is what
like,
we do.
Wow.
And
I mean,
and the audience,
beautiful,
if you see
beautiful.
the art, it's a replica of this guy because he's an award winner, nominee from some other awards last year, etc.
Chicago Music Awards.
Matter of fact, that's why I had a bass looking like a tuxedo. Just need to draw the hat, then it'll be you.
Right.
Where are you up next?
So the next thing coming up is March 15th, what they call the 34th Annual Music Awards coming
That's in
March.
Chicago.
That's in Chicago. They've had it now. This is the 34th year now, anniversary. So we're going to be doing a performance there, of course, live performance there. And we're going to do acoustic set there. So I want everybody to come out, man. It's really exciting. It's a lot of fun. And for those who've never been to the Chicago Music Awards, it's just like the Grammy Awards.
Okay.
But it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of great networking people. That there'll be different celebrities there. And so I'm looking forward to that.
How can they find information? Is there a website or?
Yeah, you can find me at Bass Tribe Mag. That's BASSTRIBES MAG. On Facebook, that's Bass Tribe Mag, and you can find me there, or you can find me at Chuck-a-Luck Bass if you want. If you can't find that, or you can you can inbox us, and we'll give you more information on what time we're going to be playing. As a matter of fact, it starts at 6 o'clock, the VIP party there at the Chicago Music Awards. So that's what's next up, and so you can contact me there if you want more information. Like I said, hit me up on Facebook at Bass Tribe Mag.
Thank you for listening. Check us out at social media. If you like this type of art or anything else that we're creating with positive music, check us out at StageTheShow.tv or SpikeRebelMusic.com. Thank you.
Let's go.
This is the Spike Rebel Experience.
Stage to show.